St. Francis de Sales was a very unique saint and is very interesting to learn about. He is a prominent figure in the history of the Church for many reasons. Some of those reasons are what his prayer life was characterized by, what his spirituality was characterized by, and what his writings were characterized by. A little bit about St. Francis de Sales' biography is that he was born on August 21st, 1567. He was known to be a very patient man. That was mainly because he knew for 13 years that he wanted to devote his life to the church. You may wonder why he waited so long to devote his life. It was because he wanted to wait until God's will was clear to him. He never wanted to push his wishes on God. An interesting story about him is that one day he was riding his horse. He fell off his horse for the first time and his sword came out of the scabbard. When he went to pick them up, he noticed that they were strangely in the shape of a cross. For the second time he fell off his horse, and he realized that his scabbard and his sword landed in the shape of a cross again. He began to become a little suspicious of it when, suddenly, he fell for a final time and realized that his sword and scabbard were again in the shape of a cross. It was that moment when he realized that God's will was very clear, and he devoted his life to the church. He had a strange idea that many people doubted and didn't think he'd be able to do it. It was to try and convert 60,000 Calvinists back to Catholicism. For the most part, it didn't work out very well. He got rocks thrown at him and doors slammed in his face. One night he even had to sleep in a tree to avoid wolves, and his feet began to bleed because of the trudging through the snow. By the end, however, it was pretty much a success. He managed to convert over 40,000 of them. St. Francis had many writings that were mainly trying to get people to convert over to Catholicism, or trying to help people find God or help them learn more about God. His most famous piece was Introduction to the Devout Life. This book, written by him, attempts to help Christians discern what it means to be a child of God in a secular world. A famous quote from that book said by him is, "Be who you are and be that well." Another one of his famous writings were a treatise on the love of God. This book was basically a manual that was intended to help believers strengthen their devotion to God. He describes his book by saying, "It is truly my intention to represent simply and naively, without art, still more without false colors, the history of the birth, progress, decay, operations, properties, advantages, and excellences of divine love." Another quote from St. Francis is, "I have more than 50 letters to answer. If I tried to hurry over it all, I would be lost. So I intend neither to hurry or to worry. This evening I shall answer as many as I can. Tomorrow I shall do the same, and so I shall go on until I have finished." This ties back to what I was talking about earlier about the idea of him being a very patient man. He does not try to rush anything. He is trying to answer all the questions that people have to the best of his ability. That way, he could spread as much as he can about God. One of the many great things about him is that his relationship with God was amazing as long as with his fellow people on earth with him. He encouraged people to find holiness in everyday matters. He emphasized the freedom each one has to choose to be good and do well, and to live noble and virtuous lives and reject what is bad and harmful. St. Francis thought that God can be found anywhere, everywhere, and by everyone. He thought it was in the daily chores that we live out our life of faith. That's pretty much how he looked upon life, and that's also what he tried to get others to do too. He did it by using all good sources possible, like the scriptures, the fathers of the church, the theologians, the councils, the liturgy, and the lives of the saints. St. Francis was strong in character, and he had a harmonious and peaceful spirit. This made people want to listen to him when he was preaching, which is something he did very often. He was actually sometimes overworked and ill from his constant loads of preaching. Another quote he had said was, "Nothing is so strong as gentleness, nothing is so gentle as real strength." Here is a prayer that St. Francis de Sales wrote himself called Your Cross. The everlasting God has in his wisdom foreseen from eternity the cross that he now presents to you as a gift from his inmost heart. The cross he now sends you he has considered with his all-knowing eyes, understood with his divine mind, tested with his wise justice, warmed with his loving arms, and weighed with his own hands to see that it not be 1 inch too large and not 1 ounce too heavy for you. He has blessed it with his holy name, anointed it with his consolation, taken one last glance at you and your courage, and then sent it to you from heaven. A special greeting from God to you, an alms of the all-merciful love of God. Amen.